All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Spread the Floor show. I'm Dano Mataya from the Spread the Floor team and her Hoop Stats. I am joined by an incredible guest today, Doug Kezirian. I'm saying that right correctly?
You got it, bud.
All right. Awesome. But for those of you who do not know, Doug is the host of Daily Wager, ESPN's daily betting show. It's on every day at ESPN at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I believe.
Yeah, we move around a lot, especially in the summer, but I think once the fall gets going, we'll be back in our usual time slot.
Awesome. So he's been at ESPN for quite a while. I know the show launched in 2019. You also host the podcast Behind the Bets by ESPN. Just been in the betting market for more than at least 15 years, I believe.
Yeah. I was going to say, I lived in Vegas in 2005 and been obviously covering the space basically for the last 20 years.
That's crazy. So we love the Vegas aspect that you're there. So you get to be pretty close to the hometown team, the Las Vegas Aces. So we know them as the title favorites right now at minus 105 at some books. I don't think they're anywhere at plus odds. Do you have any futures left right now? And do you see any value currently on the board?
I do have some futures. It was more of a hedge, but I did think it was good value, and we talked about it on the show. So when the Sky were going into the game 3, the decisive game against the Liberty, obviously on the road, they were +5 or +6 to 100 in that neighborhood. And I thought it was a really good bet just because of all the reasons they're the defending champs and the number 2 seed this year. I just think their high IQ and their poise doesn't get mentioned enough. We know about their athleticism with Copper and Gardner, and in terms of defending the perimeter, and then obviously Candace Parker and everyone else. But the backcourt play, just they don't turn the ball over. They're always poised. And I just think when it comes down to these measured possessions, and I know we're going to get into the series with the Sun, but I think that's the reason they've won every regular season meeting with the Sun. And so many of them were so tight. They forced overtime and things like that. It's just because of their high IQ. And I think that's going to be the difference maker. So the reason I thought it was a hedge, because I had the Liberty at 100 to 1. So it was sort of a hedge to get by in the series. But I think right now in the market, I think the Storm are somewhat live dog. If you wanted to bet them to win the series, I think that's fine. But in the futures, I do like the Sky to win it all. I think they're the best team right now.
I agree. I grabbed them I had them earlier in the season at 4.5 to 1. And then after they lost game 1, I did my usual scrolling through FanDuel while laying in bed and saw them at 9.5 to 1 and tried to get it there, but got plus 850. So really a lot of my chips are in that basket. I haven't really touched the Aces since the first day of the regular season, but yeah, I'm with you on the Storm at highest odds right now at 6 to 1 at most books. They're playing extremely well. They were tested in the first round as well. When you think about who their opponent was compared to Las Vegas, who really, I think they play 100 games against that Phoenix team with how depleted they were. They're probably winning around 98 of them. So I'm with you on the value there. Let's jump into the actual series bets. Looking at a whole, we'll start with the Storm and the Aces. You can find anywhere from plus 190 to 200 on the Storm right now for the series. And then Aces pretty much minus 235 to minus 250. We've talked about the Storm already. Do you think there's some value here at plus 200?
Sort of. I think there's value in game 1. I think to your point just a moment ago about the Aces not being challenged in that first round, I think some of their bad habits were just accentuated. Like they get a little careless, a little sloppy defensively. I feel like they've been, like all sports, there's times where there's a favorite and the team that's supposed to win that just plays that way, whereas the underdog will play with more urgency. And I just feel like the first round cruise control will spill over for the Aces into this game. We saw that when the Sun visited Las Vegas mid-season or so, and they went back-to-back, and it was the Vegas Aces in a blowout. And then the next game, they kind of pretended like they were still up 20 when the game began. They dug themselves, I believe, a 17-point deficit, came back right there in the fourth, and then obviously 2 of their players got hurt with Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, I believe, got hurt in that fourth quarter, and they ended up losing. But I just think there's like there's a cruise control that the Aces play, and I don't think they're that stout defensively. I think the Storm are live in game one. We saw them in the regular season finale in Vegas, and they took them to the end, and Storm, quote-unquote, had nothing to play for. So I do like the Storm in game one. I couldn't fault anyone for taking the plus 190 or plus 200. I just wonder about this Aces team. Becky Hammond's been focused on this defense for good reason. And maybe it's just the eye test, but I don't know how, like, Asia Wilson doesn't get a lot of calls. And for her to be the reigning MVP, maybe another MVP, not the reigning MVP, excuse me, a former MVP, and then maybe the MVP this year, I worry that they run their offense through someone who's not getting a lot of calls. But again, that's just could be lazy take, so the eye test. But I just really like the Storm team, and for good reason. They have 4 number 1 overall picks.
Yeah. It's hard not to deny the talent there. And you think about their bench is obviously deeper. There is some injuries to note. Gabby Williams had a concussion, had to leave the game 2 of that Mystic series. So I don't think we've received an update yet on her status. And then we know Derek Hamby was expected to be out 2 to 4 weeks from getting injured close to the end of the regular season. Don't expect her in game 1 from what I've heard. I do think that catches up to the Aces as well. We've talked about, especially on this show and on some other shows that I've been on, 95% of the point production from the Aces comes from the starters. So in the playoffs, the rotation is going to shorten up either way, but you're going to need someone else to step up, especially with the defensive schemes that Seattle runs. So I do like the bench a little more from Seattle, especially if they're getting a lot out of Ezgi Magbagor. So I saw on Bet Rivers over 4.5 games at plus 75, plus 175.
Really?
Yeah. So I firmly believe this goes 5. I don't really love the Aces home court advantage either. I know they're packing the crowds a little bit more, but their record against the spread is not as good at home as it is on the road. And then we know how good Seattle's crowd has been, pretty much selling out the entire season. So I think there's some tremendous value on plus 175 over 4.5 games.
Yeah, I like that too. I feel like there's just going to be situational betting. This happens in all the NBA postseason, WNBA, just with team down 0-1 or even 0-2. Yeah. I with the Aces, it's for me, it's if you put them in a vacuum and they play their best game, I think the Aces win.
Yeah.
I just don't know I can get the Aces best game 3 out of 5. To your point, on the road sometimes, and if the shots aren't falling, I mean, it's live and die by the 3. It's not just live by the 3. Now, again, they go through Wilson, but as I said earlier, it doesn't always get a bucket, and they just a little too casual for my liking. But to your point, Gabby Williams is a huge piece to this puzzle, and so dynamic. She can just fill in the gaps and do whatever the team needs, not just defensively with her athleticism, but she can be a cutter and whatnot. So I really like the Storm team, but they have to play their A game too. Obviously, they're loaded, but I think Jewel Lloyd is the X factor in this. I think she can kind of match up point production with Kelsey Plum, but also just point guard play with Chelsea Gray. I think she's a playmaker as well.
Yeah, we've seen Chelsea Gray really elevate her game, especially in the last 2 games in the first series, and then towards the end of the regular season. I don't know if there was some type of motivation because she wasn't an all-star this year, but either way, she's definitely stepped it up. So you think there might be opportunities also to take to look at like a Storm or an Aces future live. Say they get down, they lose game 1, and that Aces future jumps to plus 200. Do you think that's a good opportunity to hedge, or are you staying away because you really think the Storm could actually take this series?
Well, I do think the Storm are a live dog, and if they win game 1, obviously, that's a good omen. I got to see them how they play. A lot of what I'm formulating my opinion on is what I saw in the regular season finale, because obviously they're such a different team with Tina Charles, right? So it's hard to focus too much on some of these regular season meetings. The Aces are very well coached. They're obviously very talented, and they're going to hit threes. I just wonder if some of those stats from the regular season was just not stat padding or blowouts, but the playoffs have taken a different meaning. I mean, you saw what the Sky did after losing game 1, just how they stepped up their intensity on defense. And even in game 3 when the Liberty cut it to 3. They just moved it back to a 20-point. That was a 15-01 run or whatever it was.
Yeah.
The playoffs just elevate everything, and I'm worried that the Aces don't have that extra gear because they are front runners, been this team that has such firepower, and I just wonder what happens when they've been hit in the mouth a little bit.
It's going to be exciting to see. I'm with you on the live dog thing. I think it's going to be – it's nice that we actually get 5 games this series. 3 games is definitely hard, but love your point about Chicago stepping it up after losing game 1 because we're going to jump into that series next, which I think there's still a lot of value on the board. I know Calvin Wetzel texted me yesterday saying he found Sky Series at -118 at Bet Rivers. I checked today. Wow. It was at -159. But it's still at -130 on Caesars, which I think is way too low. I think you may have said you would put this at -200.
Yeah, I would have made it -200 when you factor in the home court. And look, I like the Sun. At the beginning of the season, I thought they would be the champ. I was just trying to get cute a little bit, but I love Bonner. I think she's just an amazing stat filler, does Swiss Army knife, so to speak. I say she's sort of like the Nicholas Batum when Batum was peak. When he was at his really back in Charlotte days. And I love Courtney Williams too, and I love that she's a piece, but I wonder if the Sun don't shoot the 3 well enough or enough just in general attempts wise.
Yep.
But again, these close games, I just trust the Sky and their poise, and they're so well coached. Not that the Sun aren't. I just wonder if the Sun game would they rely on the bigs too much. And I just look, we're splitting hairs, but I just think the Sky should be bigger favorites, like -200.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I love this. I love this team. I mean, we haven't had a team repeat since I think the early 2000s. But if there was any team to do it, I mean, this team is definitely better than they were last year. Adding Emma Miesemann has been proven to be excellent, and she's also definitely outperformed her averages against this matchup. Important to note. Sky have not lost at home to Connecticut since 2019. So I love them in game 1. I think it opened at -2.5. It's up to -3.5 in most places. Do you feel good about game 1?
I do. I like the -3.5. Now, one of those games, they were up, 6 in overtime. I think it was the game Vandersloot missed near the end of the regular season. And maybe it was like 7 or 9. It was something crazy. So, really, I had the Sun winning one of those. But, again, that speaks to the point of just their poise and their composure. And to your point, Miesemann and Rebecca Gardner now has emerged as an excellent defender. And she had not found money, but her offensive game has come up. And she was very effective in the first half against the Liberty and got him some points early that just helped him keep the Liberty at arm's distance. But I really like the 3.5. I actually love the money line more. It gets a little hairy when you start laying these points in these tight games. I like the money line. I think the fact that they lost game 1 to the Liberty is going to help them. And just in terms of the locker room and mindset, they're like, hey, we're the defending champs. I get it. But we saw what happened last series. Let's go take it. And I'm not going to say a hangover effect with the Sun, but they won the game. They started slow a little bit in game 3. So I like the Sky game. And if you're into live betting, I am a lot. But I feel like there's going to be a better price than +3.5 at some point in the game. I think you're going to be able to get Sun +5.5, 6, 6.5, something like that. So if you want to play both sides, create a middle, things along those lines, I think there's going to be an opportunity here. But I really like the Sky to win game 1. I'm going to lay the money line. But to your point, there's a Stations Casino out here as of last night had Sky in the series -125. So There's some really big discounts in that. And I don't know if it's odds makers who don't know a lot, just basing it off the futures where it was in the previous round because they lost game 1. So it's kind of skewed. But there's obviously a heavy Aces flavor in town. So sometimes you can quote unquote bet against the home team and get some value in that regard.
Sure. I love the live angle here because if you look back at some of these games and the runs that both these teams went on, I know Chicago held 16 points or greater leads in 2 of the games. One of them 2 of the games that they had in Chicago were morning games, which are kind of a different animal. The Sunday game is at 7 p.m. local time. So you're going to get probably a much better crowd than you would for their last game one, which was a weekday. But they're putting up 90 points a game at least, and I do not trust the Sun offense right now. I felt like they were clicking. The efficiency was there. But if any of their starters really, I mean, specifically John Quell goes out with injury or with foul trouble, this team just kind of gets into a lull, and relying on Alyssa Thomas to not only just create opportunities for others, but create for herself in a half-court game is not easy to do against bigs like Candace Parker and Emma Meeseman. So I've leaned pretty heavy on the Sky in game one. Do you think there's still value at a sweep here, or something you'd stay away from?
No, I mean, if the regular season meetings were more one-sided, I mean, I know the sweep was at a first eye test is one-sided, but I think if the games were less competitive, then I think so. I'm glad you brought up the offense of the Sun. It does bog down. I think you used the word lull. I think that's a great way to put it. And I don't know if they get mentally lazy and just kind of take poor shots and don't run their offense effectively enough. But I feel John Quell gets a little, again, lazy is the wrong word. It's mentally lazy more than anything. Just takes bad shots. And Bonner should probably score more. She doesn't slash enough. I feel like she has the capability to take games over and doesn't. That's why I love the addition of Courtney Williams to this team, because they needed someone who was more assertive, and at times she'll do that with the long twos and the mid range. I just, again, we're trying to split hairs with some of the best players and teams in the league. So that's why I would but that's why I like the Sky, just to kind of that efficiency and that IQ. I just feel like they're always making the right play and the smart play.
I'm with you on that. Well, I don't think we have any other bets to go through. Hopefully we can get you back on later on this playoffs, especially when we talk about our live angles and doing other things here in this WNBA season. Yeah.
What do you make of the totals in the series, in the playoffs so far? I feel like they've started high scoring in all these first halves.
Yeah, the first halves have been nuts, with the exception of that a few of these, or that Connecticut Sun game 3, which was just, I mean, I don't. Their defense is great. Connecticut just is from year to year, just kind of their identity changing is hard to kind of keep up with from a data perspective.
Right.
But I feel like you can trust Chicago is going to get points. Their pace is elevated a little bit too in the playoffs. They're getting a lot of shots. Connecticut did a great job of causing turnovers, but as far as the pace goes in the other game, I thought 169 was too low. I do like the over there, but I do worry about nerves in game ones. So I do think we see a lot of regression either way. If you see a really high first half, like we saw in Chicago and New York in game 3, which I was on the over on, which really hurt to see New York get so close and not score for 5 minutes. But I think Chicago's a team you can trust, so I really like a team total there. I think it's probably going to be around the 84.5, I believe. 85.5. But I'm not going to bet an under in a Vegas Storm game. I'll say that. So if anything, I would be on the over.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion on that, because I have not bet a total first half anything in the playoffs yet, and I've been feel like I've missed some opportunities. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity here with the first half overs in this series with the Sky and Sun. I mean, again, we talked about Connecticut's offense, but I like your idea of the team total even better. I feel like the Sky is going to get theirs, but the Sun, statistically, over the course of the regular season, quality defense. But I mean, this is more pronounced in baseball, right? Your record against the rest of the league over the course of a long season doesn't always apply in one matchup or a select series. I mean, that's why the Moneyball concept of the Oakland A's didn't work in the quote unquote didn't work in the playoffs, because it's against 162 games over all these other teams versus a short series against one opponent. So we just have to remind ourselves some of these statistics don't transfer over if the matchups are there. And if you push buttons, like in the last series, Johannes was started in game 3, things like that. If you do different things, will we see more Rebecca Gardner? Some of these rookies are not really rookies by the end of the season. So that's something to keep in mind. And then to your point, Gabby Williams in the other series, if she can't go. So it's we just have to remind ourselves, don't fixate on the standings. Last year, the 1 and the 2 seed didn't even make the finals, right? And they got a double bye.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. A lot of it is matchup driven, or most of it is matchup driven, and then how a team's playing at a certain juncture of the season.
Absolutely. I'm with you. It's almost nerve wracking. I feel like also in the playoffs, sometimes it's narrative driven. Like Sky should have absolutely been a mortal lock at -9.5 in game 2, right? After losing game 1, they are the champs.
First quarter, first half. I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. I also did get a little worried seeing a report that Kalia went down with a non-contact injury.
Right.
Scared myself out of that play, but
and James Wade wasn't doing you any favors either. Just how abrupt he was in all the interviews after practice.
No, I love the guy in person. He is so sweet normally, but I can understand being a little bit on edge after losing game 1 and having an elimination game at home. But God, I'm so excited for these games. I'll be there this Sunday in Chicago, so looking forward to it, and hopefully we get you back on. We got 2 more games Wednesday and 2 more games next Sunday, and hopefully cash in some of these series bets that we have going on here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on. Always enjoy chopping it up, just talking about the league, but also the betting aspect to it. So anytime, and hopefully these bets can cash on Sunday.
Absolutely. Well, everybody tune in weekdays. I mean, you'll be on soon here in I'm in Central Time, so 5 hours from now. So tune in.
Yep.
All right, Doug, have a good one.
You too. Thank you.